Good evening, everyone. Let's start the meeting. I am Chata, and on the behalf of PEA, I welcome you all to the day 5th of Eminent Lecture Series, organized on the occasion of 1 year anniversary of Petroleum Engineers Association. This session is delivered by Mr. Ishan Appu on the theme Petroleum Engineering Then and Now. Is it dusk or dawn? He is an oil and gas business consultant and has more than 12 years of experience in petroleum engineering and digitalization across the globe with Shell, Wipro, and Tech Mahindra. So, without any further delay, I would like Mr. Ishan Appu to start today's session. Over to you, sir.
Thanks, guys. So and thanks for giving me the opportunity to interact with the 29 participants and which is ever growing since the last 5 minutes I'm online, and tell them about this unique discipline, petroleum engineering, and how do we stand here. Right. So and before starting the presentation, I hope everybody is safe and doing well health-wise in this pandemic scenario. So just to start, so my name is Ishan, and I'm here to talk to you about one of the most niche and captivating disciplines in the field of engineering. And obviously I'm talking about petroleum engineering. And I hope that most of you guys and the most of the people who have joined this call are related to this field in some way or the other. So I'm calling it niche as it is offered in very few universities, and the skill set is pretty rare. And I'm calling it captivating because this petroleum engineering is a world of its own, where the industry is just not driven by the technical capability of the employees or the advancement in technology, but it's more governed by the macroeconomic scenario, and it's more governed by the political scenarios which is prevailing at a particular moment of time. And that reflection we are seeing in the oil price cyclicity, right? So also, like the petroleum engineering, though it's we call it science, we call it engineering. In my 12 13 years of experience which I have with in industry across the globe, it's we can call it science driven by physics, driven by numerical models, simulations, and whatnot, right? But I truly believe that it's more of an art, right? An art to understand the reservoir which we physically cannot see, an art to use science and technology to just withdraw this black gold out of the ground. So if you look at the slide, which is the introductory slide which I have in front of you, and I have titled it as is it dusk or dawn for the petroleum engineering discipline, right? You just have a look at the I will here just before that I'll just I'll tell you. So I'll just talk about the petroleum engineering discipline, which has and how it has evolved in the last decade and a half. And this last decade has been the most transitional phase of this discipline. We all know that oil industry is pretty cyclical in nature, right? Going through the boom and bust phases almost every decade or so. But this time, along with the normal cyclicity, which we have observed, like 3 or 4 cycles, which we have observed in the last 20 years, which we expect, right? Because of the demand and supply game, which is happening all the time. We have seen 2 more things, which has made this cycle a bit prolonged and a bit different. First, obviously, we all know it's the pandemic, which has hit us very hard for the last year and a half, and which has led to distressed demand and oil prices going down to negative values, right? At one particular moment of time, it was minus 30. The WTI crude was trading at minus $37 per barrel. So this and the other thing which is pretty responsible for this prolonged cycle and the industry not recovering in this particular moment of time is the push for the energy transition, which is even more, although it has always been there. So we see the court cases, we see these companies who are changing their business models, uh, revamping their business day in and day out. So and that's a push from the regulations, that's a push from the government. So this these two factors, along with the normal cyclicity, is what is happening to this domain right now. So having this perspective at the back of our mind, we essentially, this has led to the industry people, the outsiders, and also the people associated with the industry to introspect as to where oil and gas is going, where petroleum engineering is going, and thus what is the future of a petroleum engineer. And hence this title is there: is it dusk or dawn? Just have a look at the picture which I have on this particular slide at the top, and you see two pictures side by side, right? One is captured at dusk time and the other is captured at the dawn time. Can you tell me the difference between which is the dusk and which is the dawn? No, obviously you cannot, right? So similar is the case with the petroleum engineering department or the petroleum engineering field as a whole right now, right? You don't know what's happening, and what will happen and what we can see in the foreseeable future. But people have been pretty vocal about it, right, for the last year, a year and a half, or maybe even more than that. Some analysts foresee that the oil prices will be around in the range of $50 to $70 in the future. But there are some who have a very bullish approach and forecast the oil to be trading at maybe $150 per barrel. You do not know what is in store for us, but there's one thing we absolutely know about this transition, that things will not remain the same. So as a production technologist, we need to be prepared for that. So this is this is just a brief introduction. Just a brief background I wanted to give you guys. So just before diving into what I one second. Just before diving into what I need to tell you, let me tell you about who I am and what I have accomplished till date, right? So I am a petroleum engineer by heart, and I'm an MBA by choice, right? I have more than 12 years of experience with these companies, Shell, Wipro, Tech Mahindra, primarily with Shell, across the globe, across cultures and continents, in the domain side, as a reservoir engineer, as a production technologist, and as well as in the digital uh, side of things, right? So I joined the industry at that particular moment of time when digital was setting its footprint in the industry. And I have seen the transition as to how digital was 12, 13 years back and how digital is now. So this is a lump sum. So just sharing a few pictures. Like so I worked all across the globe. I worked in fields in Siberia where it was, you can see it. It was pretty minus 37 degrees Celsius. It had gone to minus 45, and this is I went out till this temperature. That's why I clicked it, right, and I'm showing it to you guys, right. And if you see the rigs, which is completely, the rigs were shut down. You shut down the rigs at temperatures below minus 40 degree in Siberia. And I also had the unique opportunity to work in places such as Oman and Dubai, where it was again a different experience altogether. So why I'm here? So what I'm going to tell you guys. So what I'm going to tell you, I'll share my learnings which I have acquired through my vast and diverse experience which I have had, and answer any questions, because I want this to be a bit more interactive, and answer any questions which you guys have pertaining to what a petroleum engineer will do in future. Is actually a job security an issue? Do we can we go ahead with the traditional approach, or we need to align ourselves to some new skill set. What do we need to have? If we need to add some new skill sets, what are the new skill sets which we need to add to our gambit? So all these things. So if you have any questions, you can definitely shoot at any time. So this is the agenda, right? This is what I'm going to talk to you about. Is the PE discipline coming to an end? And before you guys think about it too much, the answer is a blatant no. It's not. Although it's transitioning, it's not obviously it's not coming to an end. I'll talk to you about the overall energy landscape and the energy transition which we are talking about in the industry, from a shift from oil and gas to renewables or whatever it is, right? So this energy transition, I'll talk to you about why is this transition happening and how a petroleum engineer needs to align himself or herself to this transition. So this is the overall summary. So I'm not prepared. I'll not bore you guys with too many slides. I've prepared enough just to give you a brief understanding as to what exactly is happening with an industry and how my experience and my feedback for the last 10 years can help you prepare and shape well for the future. So let's kick off the presentation with a few data, right? It's not my opinion, but I'm just quoting some data from academia, from industry and all that, right? So I'll just show you something, right? So I'll just start with the remuneration, right? Most of the graduates in their early stage, when they join petroleum engineering, most of them join just because of the remuneration, right? It used to be pretty good, and it is pretty good, right? If you look at this plot which I'm showing you currently, petroleum engineering is at the top. So this what I'm showing is the historical salaries of engineering departments which at the entry level. So if you see, the dotted line is the actual salary and the bold lines are the normalized ones with inflation. So if you look at it, so this petroleum engineering is right at the top. Although this data, if you can see, is still 2015, and you see a slight blip just because of the lower oil prices at that particular moment of time, but it again went on the same profile. And that's the US data I'm talking about. It's very hard to gather data from other places in the world, especially Africa, Southeast Asia, and India. So this is so if you look at it, the average entry salary for a petroleum engineering graduate is close to $80,000 to $90,000, right? Which is pretty decent in this moment of time. Yeah. And there's one more salary trend which I'd like to share with you. This is essentially this is okay. Sorry, I did not switch on my video. Let me switch on my video. Okay, sorry. Okay. So this is essentially what I foresee is the salary band of a graduate after like 10-15 years of an experience in a mid-career level, a petroleum engineering graduate. So this essentially is the highest again across all the disciplines if we can talk about. And this is a 2020 and 2021 data, right? One second, let me close this. Okay. Now, if you look at the growth trend, now we talked about from the industry perspective. If we talk to you about from the academia perspective, in terms of the engineering graduates from the various disciplines, again, you see the black bold line is of petroleum engineering, as you can see from the legends. This again has been growing from 2008 to 2019-20, right? So this is again on an uphill. People are a bit skeptical, but it's something which has been growing since the last 15-20 years. So if everything is okay, if I've shown you all these historical trends with respect to remuneration and growth and not, so is it can what is the all the hassle all about? What is all the talk all about? Can the petroleum engineering engineers be replaced with digital, with automation, with AIML, with whatever we are talking about, with renewables, right? So the most pertinent questions for a graduate or for anybody who is currently in the industry or who is a very young professional or even a mid-level professional like me, this is the pertinent question which we are having at this particular moment of time. And the answer is not definitive at this moment of time. It's partly yes and partly no. And the second partly which I am talking about constitutes of a greater percentage, right? Like in you what I'm talking about, just give me a minute. And why I'm saying this is happening, just because of the digital transformation uh, and the business transformation which is currently happening in the oil and gas space. So let me just okay. So what we presume, people or even the young graduates generally presume that digital and AI with automation of roles and skills in the ONG sector. So digital is in the industry. It has started. People are or companies are doing digital in their regular day-to-day operations. But what people confuse this digital is with the automation, right? And this and automation is a very small part of digital, which might replace some of the roles and skills in the oil and gas sector. And this, according to a study, is close to 15 to 20%, which is pretty less, right? Digital is more to do with augmentation of skills rather than elimination through automation. So digital will essentially, the meaning of this line is digital will help a petroleum engineer. It will not take away his or her job until and unless it's a repetitive job which can be automized and which eventually would have been automized even if digital was not there, right? So digital is more to do with extension of an extension skill set of PE of a petroleum engineer rather than him worrying about it as an elimination criteria. No. So this technology augmentation with integration with computational system is the in thing in the market right now. And by this, I mean these four things, right? I'm talking to you about IoT. I'm talking to you about data science. I'm talking to you about cloud computing, edge computing. I'm talking to you about change management. I'm talking to you about agile. I'm talking to you about blockchain. I'm talking to you about a number of things, right? So this is all which encompasses digital. So and automation is a very small part, which as I told you, things which eventually which need to be automated will eventually be automated. But yeah, so there's another key insights which I got from this energy outlook report for 2021 is it's a lot, it's a lot of text. You don't need to go through it. But they had a survey in 2019 or 2020, and in 2020, where the 73% and where they found out these three basic points, right? The first one is 73% of the energy professionals are looking for new opportunities out in their current sector and across the other energy sectors. By other energy sectors, I mean renewables and all these stuff, right? So they are not currently happy with what they are doing. This is essentially, it's not that they were not happy. The thing is, they are not happy. The reason behind is because of the fear that whether the conventional roles which they have been doing for decades, which they have been doing for 10 years or 5 years, whatever be the timeline, they might become redundant in the near future, right? That's why people are moving to different streams just to for a better job future or a job or job security or whatever you call it, right? Moreover, there was, you might have heard, right? There had been huge layoff in the last 2 3 years from the oil and gas E&P as well as the service sector, right? So people who were laid off, and And as per the data, what it say that there was a lack of support that was provided to the laid off community. They received zero support in terms of finding them or helping them research a new role, right? Or even or if the opportunity was given the opportunity, they were not hired back to the organization. So these are some of the apprehensions which people have in today's day and age, right? Moreover, if I talk to you about the young professionals, right, about the graduates here today, like when I was doing petroleum engineering, I did not have as many options as you guys have today, right? So the so you so the young professionals can move to to multiple industries, multiple types of jobs, rather than working in a petroleum engineering oil and gas asset 20 days 8 days on a trot, right? So it's not it's pretty it's not easy. It's a tough job essentially to start off with. So if given an opportunity, nobody wants to go to the field, right, and work tirelessly for 28 days on a trot. And that's why these service companies, who are essentially the who do the work on the field, they are minimizing their manpower on the field. They are setting up collaborating. In fact, they are not setting up. They have already done that. They have set up remote centers, collaborative work environments, and all and whatnot, right? So that they can attract the talent who have multiple options to choose from, and in this day and age. So that's the good part. The third thing is which is again a bit of a concern with respect to people who are joining the industry, who want to move from one place to another across the globe, right? Who want to have a diverse international experience. So I was fortunate enough to travel to, I don't know, like 10 countries or 12 countries and stay there for 6 months or a year or whatever. But what's happening with most of the oil and gas assets or oil and gas countries is they are more towards they are hiring more local talent as compared to a global. They are recruiting people from a global skill pool. So localization is another thing which is in the and which will continue to be, right? Because, and there are reasons behind it. It's not their choice, but just because of the reduced business margins, right? Low oil prices means low business margins, and the locals which are in fact more trained, that is resulting in the reduction of the expat positions, if I may call so. So these are and this report I found pretty useful, and this actually spoke out the hard truth which is there in the industry right now. So this is just showing you that the same data in plot wise, yeah. But having said that, if you look at the data for 2020, right, when the pandemic was at peak, if you look at the regional, again, if I'm talking about remuneration and salary outlook in 2020, and if you look at the left side of the two pictures in right, so you see the average salaries of oil and gas and the regional average for different regions, right? In all the regions, you see that the oil and gas average salaries is pretty much higher. And this is just compared. The regional average is not for the entire industry. It's just the energy sector I'm talking about, be it be mining, be it be renewables and whatever. So it's regional average of the energy sector, not the regional average of all the sectors. And here also oil and gas scores well. If you look at the right side again, you see the salary changes in 2020. For most of the people, it has, for 50% of the people, it like close to 50%, it has remained the same, right? There has been decrease for only some people, and rest of all you can see in the slide. So in spite of this pandemic, in spite of the lower oil prices, in spite of the oil prices hitting minus 37, again, this minus 37 is not something that you'll get money when you buy the oil, right? It's something, it's more related to spot trading. It's more related to contracts. It's more related to futures, right? So in spite of that particular fact, oil price is going to minus 37 and all that, the overall the industry balanced itself this year. It's not like it was absolutely haywire, but there are problems which the data suggests the industry will foresee in the future. Now why is this happening, right? So now I'll just talk to you about, I'll just give you an overall picture of this energy demand and this energy transition, if I may talk about it just quickly. This is not this is the plot which I am currently showing you. This is an IEA plot, right? International Energy Agency, which most of the companies rely upon. And this is, if you see the plot, although you see a pretty steep rise in the renewables, right? Just because they are pretty low right now, that's why the slope is a bit high. You'll see that the oil and the gas uh, distribution in the overall energy portfolio is not declining. In fact, gas is increasing at a rapid pace. This is also what the most of the companies energy outlook share. As per this is IA's plot. If I show you BP's plot, it says that the oil demand will increase to like 100 million barrels per day by 2035 or 2030, I don't remember, and then it will stabilize. Gas will continue to increase, right? So this is what is happening. So it's not that oil and gas energy demand will come down, and you'll not need to drill more wells, right? Or you'll not need to extract oil out of the ground. It's not the case like that. The thing is, with the increase in GDP of the various countries, with the increase in population, the overall energy demand will increase, and along with it, the oil and gas energy demand in absolute numbers has to increase. Maybe the slope of renewables or the slope of the other or the battery or the electricity or whatever we call it, the slope might for these alternative forms of energy might be a bit higher because they are starting from a lower point. But in absolute numbers, the oil and gas market share will increase. In the only problem is with coal, which will die out in future in the next 10 to 20, 15 years. This is not what I am saying. This is what these companies are saying, right? The energy transition long-term targets for the top 5 companies in the world, except Exxon. Exxon is not there in the list. You have data for Shell, BP, Total, like now it's called Total Energy, ENI and Repsol, right? So everywhere in terms of oil and gas production, if you I've just highlighted it with a green or a red arrow. So if you look at the oil and gas production for these 5 companies, they're all on the their targets. Their long-term targets is to increase it, except BP. Renewable capacity, it's increasing. Low carbon investment, it's increasing. Carbon capture and storage, CCS, it's increasing. As flaring, obviously it has to come down, right? So except BP, every other organization, including Exxon, they plan their long-term target is to increase their oil and gas production. What will happen is they can move from a hardcore oil company to a gas company, which I think Shell is currently on the target too. But to eliminate oil and gas out of the entire energy mix, it's a highly improbable scenario. So as I mentioned, that the fossil fuel will be a key part, and again, these IOCs are trying to align their business outlook with the demand forecast and distribution. So what is now happening is these regulations under which they have to operate, they are becoming very stricter. So initially it was a matter of choice for these international oil companies, but now it's by forced measures, right? An example of which was like a week or 10 days back when Shell lost emission, an emission case in The Hague, in Netherlands, right? So Shell has Shell has to reduce its emission by a certain percentage as per the court orders. This slide recently has become pretty popular with most of the energy analysts. Essentially what I'm showing to you. So among majors, the companies which are planning who are like keeping E&P as a core as compared to who are not prioritizing E&P, you see just BP, who is which is just an offset from the others. BP has some different plans as compared to the in terms of the energy expansion, in terms of E&P, in terms of oil and gas revenues, and I don't know how they must have their own set of ideas. They must have their own set of strategies behind it, logic behind it. But most of the organizations, they have to keep E&P as a core and expand on the other forms of energy, including renewables, including electricity, including gas, whatever it is, to grow in the future. So big oil will remain big oil in the next foreseeable future. The other forms of energy will be a sort of augmentation to it, but not a replacement to it. So why are we are facing such an unprecedented disruption, right? Only two reasons, right? There are two causes: the supply forces and the demand forces. So what are the demand forces? We are seeing a shift in the global demand pattern because of the economy, the macroeconomic economy of and the slowdown which we had seen in China initially. We have seen like companies like Tesla rising up and coming up with electric vehicles, right? So there is a demand destruction in the transportation fuels. We have seen the capabilities of the batteries going up like anything, right? Already huge technological advancement in terms of battery storage, the cost of batteries, that has been huge. So that again, it provides you an alternative source, right, of energy storage. There's something related to 3D printing, and the most important, the climate regulations, the Paris Agreement, which again now US is a part of which it was not like for the last 5 or 6 years. So these regulatory things which have come up, right? And what about the supply? So you have seen a rise in the new hydrocarbon sources like shale, correct? Which again, it was like technologically and economically, it was not feasible to produce from shale like 10 years earlier, but now it's it has been possible, and it's now and most of the companies have harnessed into this opportunity. There has been changing geopolitical equations, government regulations, penetrations of renewable, solar cost falling, a number of things, right? So the essence of what I'm trying to say is the targets, we have seen oil prices of about $120-$130, right? And there the cost of the unit development cost of producing 1 barrel of oil was close to $40 per barrel. I'm not talking about heavy oil. I'm not talking about costly technologies and all that. I'm talking about simple cheap oil. The cost to with little bit of technology, with little bit of complexity in the reservoir, right? Like the normal, like the average number I'm giving you. The unit development cost was close to 40 or 50, and these companies were selling oil at 120, 130, right? With the decrease in oil prices, companies are going towards anything, going towards any solution which might decrease their costs. First of all, their operating costs. Any solution which might increase their operational efficiencies, or anything which might lead to lesser deferment in the oil and gas production, in the production system, the overall oil and gas production system. And that I'm talking about from the upstream perspective, right? So here is where digital comes into. So digital will play a very important role, and it has started playing a very important role in managing demand destruction and enabling transition in the new operating model which these companies have already come up with, right? So you need to be, obviously you need to be a petroleum engineer with not an expertise, but some degree of understanding in the digital domain, especially if you are in the service sector. So and I'll show you some trends, right? I've started talking to you about digital. I'll show you some trends. Where are the petroleum engineers heading to? And this is not, again, not my data. This is something which I got from Google, from the Google Trends, right? If you look at, I'll not show you all the graphs. I'll explain you some of the graphs. If you look, if you see the left side of this slide pack of this slide, the red is the machine learning part, the blue is the artificial intelligence, and the green is the deep learning part. So this is the number of keyword search results which I'm talking about in the last starting from 1995 till date. The top one relates to the keyword search results for all industries related to machine learning, deep learning, and artificial intelligence publications. And if you go down, it's related to only the oil and gas industry. So what do we see in the oil and gas industry? Post 2010 and post 2015, people are looking out for these solutions. People are searching machine learning. People are searching deep learning. People are searching artificial intelligence, and especially the P's. So what do we see? We see that adoption of machine learning and deep learning in the oil and gas industry has lagged by about 5 to 10 years if you compare it from the general industry, right? If you just look at it, it's 2000. It started to pick up in the early 2000s for all the industries, but for oil and gas industry, if you see it, it's the machine learning part, the red curve, it started picking up in 2010, right? Currently, the adoption of machine learning and deep learning in the industry is on the rise. And it will be on the rise. And there will be a point that the growth, the deep learning will take over machine learning in terms of popularity. So this is just one of the data trends which I wanted to share with you with respect to what the industry and what the petroleum engineers are doing today. So having talked about digital, most of you guys must be wondering what exactly is digital, right? What is a digital framework and how do we do digital in an oil and gas field? I have talked to many people because I have been involved with digital since the inception of digital in the oil and gas space. Most people just use this word for the sake of using it, which should not be the case, right? Digital, they don't understand it. Digital can be, it's not necessary that you need to do incorporate a digital technology for an entire field or an entire asset. It can be for a well also, right? It depends upon what the client needs. So if I try to explain to you digital, just give me 5 minutes. I'll just show it to you. Digital starts with data. Data is the backbone. Data is the bloodline. Data is everything for digital. Until and unless you have data, you'll not be able to do any sort of incorporate any sort of digital technologies in whatever fields or assets or wells or whatever it is, right? Earlier, data, we were getting data from the wells in, like, I'm talking 10 years ago, but now it's in the age of big data, in the age of data, the velocity, in the age of data velocity, data veracity, data volumes, which has become paramount. I think digital even makes more sense. So just to start off, you get data from the wells, right? Or from anywhere, for a matter of say. Second is the IoT, right? The industrial Internet of Things, right? We are talking about how to acquire this data, right? Through sensors, through hardware, through whatever it is, right? So this is the IoT I'm talking about. So how do you acquire this particular data? So sensors, if I talk about, right, why were we not able to install sensors, right, earlier? Because the sensors were expensive. The sensors did not have enough capability. You even look at your, laptops, right? Initially, it was, it was pretty expensive, the chips and all that, right? Now it has just drastically the costs and the capability of the sensors. Yeah, this has just skyrocketed in these days, right? So you can install sensors wherever you want. It's not expensive to install them. And that's why if you install them, you'll get the data, right? So this is a very integral, and that's where many companies are getting into it. So this is one part of digital to as to how to acquire the data. The second part is how to make sense out of that data, how to convert that data into information, and how to convert and how to convert that information into insights as to whether we can do something about it. And here comes the data analytics part, and here comes the AI, here comes the machine learning. So this is and again the I think the core of the any digital framework if we want to do something with it, right? Initially it was descriptive analytics, right? If I've talked about the data analytics, initially it was descriptive in nature. Descriptive is to find out what is the problem, like what is it with the data, right? What we just analyze it on an overall basis. Now it has gone into a predictive level where we can predict when anything is going to fail. And the idea is to take it to, and not now I'm also doing some projects in which we are trying to take it to a prescriptive level, right? We will suggest as to if something has gone wrong, then we'll prescribe the system to suggest certain scenarios, as to suggest certain solutions to it, right? And people and companies like Schlumberger or even Weatherford or even Halliburton, they are doing immense work in the field of data analytics using AI and ML. It's just not, it's just not data management stuff. It's gone way beyond that. The third thing, which most of us are pretty, skeptical about, is the automation part of things, right? So this automation is again a pretty important ingredient of digital, right? Where you need to automate repetitive tasks. And by repetitive task, I mean essentially the backend work, right? The backend work, for example, if there is a joint venture, right, between 2 or 3 companies, and every month you need to do a joint venture accounting as to what is the revenue share of the 5 or 6 or 2 or 3 partners which are involved in the joint venture. A person doing it day in and day out, it will be, first of all, it will be very boring for him, and secondly, it will not be of much value. So you need to automate that particular task, and here where the automation parts come in. The other applications are drones, where you can survey the field, or you can, at least the surface level surveillance you can do with the help of the drones, instead of you or a petroleum engineer driving up to that particular location and surveying the entire region, right? You can do it with drones. That's another example of automation. So this is about how you acquire the data, how you make sense out of the data, right? Now the thing is, where do you, deploy this machine learning models? Where do you store this data, right? It has to be stored somewhere, right? Till now, the companies were doing this on-premise, but now they are doing it. But now, since all these companies like AWS, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, these companies have come up, and they are like partnering with the service companies or ENP companies and setting up cloud servers. They are providing edge computing services, which will be pretty helpful to the clients, right? To the ENP operators. Blockchain, that is another important component of digital. When we talk about blockchain, we think about Bitcoin, right? But here, blockchain technology, that like Bitcoin is an application in the financial domain, but when I talk about oil and gas digitalization, blockchain can definitely be used for the smart contracts. If I have the time, I'll tell you about it. But whenever I get an opportunity, right? But it's again a very very important component of digital. Similar is the case of ERP systems like SAP, right? Which is again like digitalized. So all these things, I'm talking about the components, but how do you do this digital? You do it using agile, right? This is again a methodology, a philosophy, a thinking, a framework for doing digital projects. And the most important component of any digital thing is people and change management, right? To go to a field, people have been doing the same work the work which they have doing in a particular manner for the last 10 years, and you as a service provider or as an ENP company, whomsoever you are, you go to these people and tell them that this is a new technology, this is the digital technology which you need to incorporate in your day-to-day work. You don't expect these people to change overnight, right? You have to follow a change management process for that. You have to train them. You have to be take very constructive feedback from them. You have to understand the problems which they are facing. It's all about people. Digital, in my opinion, is all about people. Until and unless people adopt it, unless the change, any project will not be successful in the digital sphere. So this is the digital part. Okay, so coming back to the initial question which I asked you guys, right? Is it dusk or is it dawn, right? So just I'm trying to answer that question myself. The left, if you can see, is the picture of a dusk type of thing, right? So where it is. So a conventional or a traditional petroleum engineer with limited skill sets, right? Who uh, that that I'm not saying that it will go off immediately, right? But it will slowly taper off to the end, right? The example of this is, right, for example, if you are a reservoir engineer, you just know how to do a simulation in CMG or in Morris or in any, just that, right? So that skill set will take you to a level, but not beyond that. Or you are a production technologist who are writing just completion and workover proposals day in day out, doing mundane things day in and day out. Or you are a petrophysicist who is doing only well log evaluations in, for example, in TechLog, right? In a SLB or a Halliburton proprietary software. So these things are something which people could have lived like 10 years ago or 5 years ago, where this was pretty important. I'm not in any way demeaning these things, right? I'm saying that these are the most important things, but these are not the only things to survive in the industry in the next decade. So what is the so what do you need to add on then? You need a digital, multifaceted petroleum engineer with expansive skill sets. And what I discussed in digital is something which needs to be understood by the young professionals, right? You need to have an understanding of digital, and I'm telling you, it's not easy. It's not you'll not get easy and hard is not the word I'd like to portray here. I'd like to say that it's not something which you will get hold of overnight. It will take its own sweet time. It will come up, the understanding of digital will come up with experience, with readings, with working in projects, with interacting with people, with knowing about technology, with being aware of the day-to-day things, right? Day-to-day advancements, right? So this is how you'll get an understanding of digital. Then there's the digital oil field and the integrated operations, all these things which I have mentioned in the previous slide. So that is an important skill set which you need to have. Having said that, domain is the key, right? You need to have domain knowledge, because you're doing digital for any engineering problem, or for example machine learning for any engineering problem is absolutely a different set of problem as compared to machine learning for a non-engineering set of problems, right? Here domain is always the key. Until and unless you know simulation, until and unless you understand gas lift, until and unless you understand ESP, until and unless you understand the drilling process, you will not be able to contribute too much in the digital sphere, because because your expertise as a petroleum engineer is the first priority to being a digital petroleum engineer. This is an add-on. This is not the core. Core will always remain the core. So this is so I hope I have answered my question which I portrayed at the start of this presentation. And apart from talking to you about these hardcore skills, right, which is essentially needed in the next decade and thereafter, I have not prepared a slide for that, but I'll just touch base upon a couple of soft skills, right, which is again very important from a young professional's point of view, and even our mid-level management professional point of view, right? So the two things which I think I think many instructors or in many lectures you might have heard, right? The two most important soft skills to excel in any industry, be it oil and gas or anything, right, is networking and communication, right? So networking is a word which I don't use much. I don't like the word networking much, right? Because it's very it sounds very agenda driven, right? It's very insecurity based and it seems very self-interested, right? It's like saying that my name is, for example, my name is X, and I might need some favor from you someday, right? This doesn't sound good, right? It's essentially a very superficial acquaintance, which even if you don't have that, people will help you. So I'm not talking about a very superficial acquaintance sort of networking. I'm talking something about you investing in people. You investing your time in people, and how do you do that? Through your own willingness to be vulnerable, open, curious, empathetic. Whatever words which you hear, right? You need to be deeply invested in people. Then only you will be able to make like genuine friendships and relationships, and those are the people who will help you land up a job or change a job or excel in your career. It's not like some LinkedIn posts or liking some posts on LinkedIn of people whom you think will help you, right? It's much beyond that. And the way to do networking, this type of networking and is communication. You have to have a level of communication which is beyond social media, right? I understand that you cannot talk to every people all the people all the time, but you need to have a basic level of uh, communicate basic communication level, so that you can just pick up a phone or at least call 10-20 people when you need them. So this is the non digital part I'd like to touch base upon, which I have not put in my slide, but these are very important. And lastly, you, you see, right, uh, last 20 years or 30 years, in the 1990s or early 2000s, oil ruled the world, right? And that's why all these wars were there, from in Iraq or in Saudi or in Yemen, right? Just because of the oil thing, right? The oil ruled the world for decades. Now what do you hear? Data is the new oil, and will rule the world for decades, right? You need to have an understanding of data and digital in this area, because this is what will help the oil and gas industry to reduce its costs. And this is where these companies are going into, right? So data is the new oil, right? Which is absolutely correct. So now if you know about oil and data both, which is what my aim that you should, maybe the world is yours, right? So this is the message I would like to leave you with respect to the this presentation. I hope you have, and I'm here to answer any questions which you have with respect to this.
Thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful presentation and session.